Welcome, everybody, to episode 178 of Chelsea Against the World, a podcast that brings together an American and Englishman to discuss all things Chelsea Football Club. I'm your host, Manny.
And I'm your host, Simon. And Manny, it's the last episode before the new Premier League season, and you on the road, as
I'm
per
on the
usual.
road.
We have to do it the
I'm
first episode of the season with you on the road.
I'm taking this show on the road, my friend. I'm over here in the Northeast trying to recruit more Chelsea fans as we speak.
Good man. Good man. How's your trip going so far?
It's going really good. To listeners out there, I'm on a little hiking trip with three of my very good friends. We normally hike, in the springtime. We decided to do one here in the late summer, before everybody's work schedules get started up, in the fall. And we're currently in Bar Harbor, Maine. Going to do some hiking in Acadia National Park tomorrow. Climbed two pretty big mountains. The highest mountain in Vermont called I think it's like Mount Mansfield, and then the highest mountain in New Hampshire called Mount Washington, and both were pretty cool, awesome hikes. So it's been a fun trip so far.
That's awesome, mate. That's awesome. Yeah, it's hot as balls here in Tennessee.
Dude, I heard it's terrible, man.
Honestly, it was horrific. It's been horrific. I think Nashville SC played Lionel Messi's Inter Miami on Saturday, and the weather was it was ridiculously hot. But upset. Lionel Messi went home crying after, and it's Casemiro and Rodrigo de Paul as well leaving Nashville after getting absolutely hammered 4-1. Crazy performance, crazy performance. But I think we had our MLS chat last week. We've got a lot to talk about in this episode, Manny. The start of the new Premier League season is just upon us. We're recording on Monday evening. So if you're listening on Tuesday, some of the news might be slightly outdated considering the transfer market is moving at such a fast rate. So in this episode, we're going to be going over the latest transfer news, talking about a little bit about the Enzo Fernandez saga, and then making our Premier League and Chelsea predictions for the season. So it's a big episode, a lot of important things to talk about, a lot of updated stories. Firstly, let's talk about a little bit about the last pre-season friendly that we had on Saturday. The first game for Xabi Alonso at Stamford Bridge against Real Sociedad with a 3-1 Chelsea win. I know there was a lot of trouble for a lot of Chelsea fans across the world trying to get access to the game, but what did you make of it? What did you think of Alonso's first home game for Chelsea?
I think that game, I mean, I think in general, we kind of, look, I wouldn't say look down upon some of these friendly games, but I think in general, we don't take much in terms of the team's performance, how they played in the friendly versus how they're going to play in the rest of the season. But I thought this friendly to me was particularly interesting because I think it kind of gave sort of an understanding of what maybe Xabi Alonso is looking forward to in the starting 11, next Monday against Fulham. And it was nice to see Cole Palmer, obviously, and Morgan Rogers playing, on the same time on the pitch. But also, it was interesting to see Pedro Neto and the way he was put in that wingback position. And with the news that we're hearing now, with what's going to happen with him, that we can talk about a little bit later on, the potential rumors about him. And I thought it was a good showing for the squad. Played very, very well. And I think I was really, really just impressed the way Lavia played in the second half coming off the bench. I thought he was incredible. You can tell a healthy Lavia how important he is for this midfield. Maybe that could, make some decisions on what happens with the Enzo Fernandez saga later, a little bit later on in this window. But it was great getting a victory, particularly at home for his first game, and I think the crowd was up for it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think Lavia's performance, I just wonder playing how much of significance that 90 minutes playing for the first time, I think, for Chelsea is going to do to his confidence. Because you have to think about a player who's had that many injury worries. Half the battle is in their head. And if they feel anything, they'll get maybe too careful. But Alonso has shown strong management there and giving him confidence to play those 90 minutes in a no pressure setting, which hopefully has done something to his ability. Like, we all know his ability, but the way that he can drive himself forward in these games now, hopefully, because I think Chelsea's midfield depth has worried me a little bit. I think we've talked about on the previous episodes about that. But yeah, it was great to see him. João Pedro, utterly amazing. What a
Yeah,
player.
100%.
I mean, we're going to make our preseason predictions later in this episode, but I've got a feeling that both of us are going to rank him pretty highly on the Premier League scoring charts this season. But I made this point actually in a chat with some of our friends that I think he's Chelsea's most important player at the moment. Really, I do. If you look at our striker depth and look at where the goals were generated from last season, some other players are going to have to step up. What do you think he's our best player and most important player at the moment?
I think he is the most important player, and I think he is the best player in current form. I mean, the argument could have made, 2 years ago, based on how Cole Palmer was playing, up until that season, where he was just scoring goals for fun, and then the drop off of last season, and even in how terrible Chelsea were last season, João Pedro was one of the bright spots in leading goal scorer for the team, and he played remarkably well in the nine position. Because I think when you have the likes of Nico Jackson, Omega, and some other players behind him, and especially with Welbeck being signed, I think it's going to be a little bit more minutes that may be shared. And so I'm hoping that if he's on form, Xabi Alonso just keeps with him playing in that nine position. I don't want to see him sort of play minutes together with Welbeck in that 10 position. I'd rather see him alone, number nine, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to play him striker now. It's just quite funny of our previous manager, who he shall not be named, the Man City guy, said that he wasn't sure that João Pedro could be the striker to lead the line. And I'm just like, what are you watching, mate? What are you watching? But I think in pre-season, you want to see different combinations. You could try some things out. I think that it's interesting to know that if Chelsea have to change tactics, where maybe we are playing against a low block where we have to start punting the ball into the air, that João Pedro can drop a bit deeper. And his ability on the ball is second to none and just an incredible player. Really, it was the atmosphere looked good at Stamford Bridge on Saturday, actually. I think the first half was a bit shaky, but some strong performances in that second half. I think Lavia, you mentioned, but also I thought Gusto played quite well when he came on as well. That pass for João Pedro's goal was exceptional. Maybe he is going to be given a chance under Alonso that maybe we didn't think he was going to be with Palestra signing. But do you think that's the starting 11 that we see against Fulham on Monday?
I think so. I mean, but barring any late changes in the transfer market with Pedro Neto, and if he gets shipped off to Saudi Arabia, but I think this is probably going to be the main starting lineup. I think you're going to probably see James playing in that pivot with Caicedo in the midfield. I think you're going to see Palestra Neto if he's on the team in the wing back positions, and I think that's the most confident back three: Lacroix, Colwell, and Fofana. I don't think you get better than that. And certainly not with this with the form of how some of these players were playing last year. I think that's how you have to start in the back three.
Yeah, I agree. If Neto does go, do you think Gusto plays right wing back?
No, I think he'll probably bring in Hato and then move Palestra to the right wing back position and kind of like maybe play a hybrid back four out of position.
Yeah, we also got Pep Chavaria as well, who looked quite good when he
Exactly.
came on as well.
No, I agree. I think a lot hinges on what's going to happen. And, I read the reports earlier, and if I'm sorry for skipping to this Pedro Neto news, but
No,
we
no,
read the
that's all good.
reports. Yeah, we kind of saw some of these rumblings, I think 2 or 3 days ago, like this random person who apparently has some know in the Saudi dealings said that there was been some discussion with Al Hilal and Chelsea in terms of purchasing Pedro Neto, and the negotiations for Pedro Neto and his side in terms of salary has already been agreed upon. Which, when you hear these sort of background noise and things like that, it doesn't really make sense. But then it's sort of now gaining stream where some of the more, you know, I would say Chelsea beat writers who have a little bit more influence, a little bit more understanding about the situation are also now reporting on it. So I think this is something that probably could move pretty fast depending on what happens. And I think that you know this, Simon, I'm a huge admirer of Pedro Neto. I love the signing and everything like that. But if they get anywhere near what Chelsea has decided as being the valuation of Pedro Neto of 100 million pounds, I think you have to sell him. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think so. For 100 million, which is the number that's being touted, I think it's such a large amount of money. However, I would make this point as well that Savinho looks like he's going to be going to Spurs for 85 million. And Savinho, has scored 2 goals for Manchester City in the league in 2 seasons? I think it has been. I think the options that we have in that position behind Neto are a risk. Neto is a pretty proven quality, and I actually think this system might get the best out of him. But I think if they offer 100 million and they're going to be offering him a ridiculous Saudi Arabian salary, which is what they've proven they will do, I think he will go. Um, and I think to myself, with the options that we have, and it obviously is going to be contingent on more sales and more departures. But I think we have to strengthen in that area again. I feel there's
Yeah.
still going to be more turnover if we're going to let substantial players like Neto and Enzo Fernandez go. There has to be reinvestment. Has to be. Do you think he's going to leave?
I think the way the wind is blowing, he probably is going to be sold if Chelsea gets anywhere near that evaluation. I do think that we are sort of like thin in that area if he leaves, and particularly if we see, you know, another like he's Enzo, because Enzo played a lot in that wing position, the 10 position last year, and when we lose him and Neto, that's two big losses. But I do think it will give opportunities for Quenda, it'll give more opportunities for Esteval, and I think Quenda is somebody that can probably morph into that wing back position because I think Morgan Rogers and Jamie Giddens probably have that left side on their own. So I think it'll probably alleviate that congestion in that winger position and maybe allow more minutes for some of the other players since we don't have Europe.
Yeah, agreed. Before we touch on the big story, another big one, whereas your interests are concerned, Benoit Badiashile looks like he's finally leaving Chelsea on loan to Napoli initially, but looks like there'll be some favourable conditions to a sale in the future. What's your immediate reaction to notoriously your favorite? You know, Manny's got about five Badiashile jerseys in his
Yeah.
closet. So, mate, this is one of your most hated Chelsea players of in recent
Well,
history.
and I think it's more out of frustration. I'm not critical. I mean, my criticism comes from the way he's played and the mistakes he's made, and the constant sort of like, for most Chelsea fans, they kind of cling on that form that Benoit Badiashile had when he first came to Chelsea squad. He, sort of playing in that left position on the back three, so he was sort of masked having another central defender next to him and a wing back with him. But in a back four, he could never be consistent. Number one, he was always injured, and number two, he was so inconsistent. And when he had the ball to his feet, there was always this sort of like tense sort of chest pains I'd be getting because I know he'd be prone to making a mistake. And it seems that there's always this sort of selective amnesia that when he plays one or two games, we forget that he's prone to mistakes. And then 3 days later, he makes a mistake that leads to a goal. Like I feel for him. I wish that he would have improved upon, some of the minutes he got last year. But to me, he's basically part of evidence to some of the transfer failures and signings that we've had, looking towards some of these center back signings that we've made, especially with him and Disasi.
Yeah. It's frustrating because I think he's clearly talented. And you have to say that the amount of injuries he's had has probably stunted any development that he's had. But I will miss one thing, and that's when we're watching Chelsea with Badiashile, the team. When you look at me and you give me the Badiashile eyes, which is like pure fear. It's like in a horror movie when someone's so scared. It's really that is what I'm going to miss about it. But I'm not going to wish him. I'm not going to miss him giving me heart palpitations every time we were watching him, which is,
Yeah.
hope for him that he does well, really.
But this whole option on this loan deal, we have no idea how it's going to be triggered. So we can say goodbye now, but it may be, welcome back, 1 year from now. Who knows, right?
These Italian clubs, man, you just can't get a deal through like smoothly. It's always complicated, especially with Napoli. It's really hell on earth trying to do that. But really, that's one of the only major outgoings that's like near completion at the moment. There's a lot more work to do, but we need to touch upon this again, which is the subject of Enzo Fernandez. Since we last spoke, Chelsea gave that very public deadline of saying 120 million before Friday at 5 p.m. UK time. Otherwise, we're not selling him, which was, in my mind, completely performative. I think it showed that was like the strategy they're going for. It's not going to be an easy ride for them. But it looks like this story is far from over. And then obviously add to the complications where he played on Saturday at Stamford Bridge, where he got booed by you have to say it was a small section of the supporters. I think that the majority of the supporters were singing his name and chanting his name, which I agree with. Listen, I have personal feelings about Enzo Fernandez that maybe don't align to other people, but I do not want to boo players while they're playing with the Chelsea shirt. And like, you can argue his level of consistency and commitment, but he's not one of those players who, while he's been playing, has really completely down tools. I know there's some argument that suggests that maybe he's not been as effective as he needs to be at that price tag. But where do you think everything stands at the moment, and what do you think is going to happen?
I think we're still like in purgatory with this whole saga. I mean, this whole deadline thing situation. I admire the club for putting this information out, but those are so arbitrary, right? Like it makes no sense sometimes. And I think when a team is desperate, and we saw a team like Man City and how bad they looked and how poor they looked in and out of possession, the Community Shield against Arsenal yesterday. I think this is a team that needs some creativity. And you mentioned this in one of our side chats about the leadership that Man City's lost this past year. And you see now Rodri signing with Barcelona. I mean, he was a star within their midfield, a Ballon d'Or winner. I think the manner they lost yesterday against Arsenal and them trying to kind of sort of buy into Enzo Maresca's play style, I think it's gonna lead them to panic buy. And I think they probably will come after Enzo and make an offer that may be north of 120 million that we set as sort of a panic buy. I honestly think he's going to be gone. I mean, I think the noise is still there. You kind of hear him having these salary issues at Chelsea. Mind you, Chelsea's not in the Champions League this year, so any salary for any player will be dropped based on the contract they signed. But he's under contract with us for so many more years. So I think salary aside, I think if he's upset about his play, his position in this new Chelsea team under the new management, and he wants a better salary, he's probably going to leave as well. So I think it's a situation where he may want to leave for a higher salary, and Man City really needs him, and he feels comfortable playing a Enzo Maresca system.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable that he goes. I don't think that deadline did anything to convince me otherwise. I think the animosity towards Enzo Maresca from the Chelsea fans is so strong. I think it was a quite a clever PR move by Chelsea to put that into the ether that they were not going to bow down to City pressure. But ultimately, if City really want him and he really wants to leave, he'll go. Because Chelsea don't want a player like that there. And I was thinking back at the timeline of last season, and I think the writing was on the wall when they banned him for 2 games after he made those comments in Madrid about Madrid. And I think that I don't really, as a player in Chelsea's system, I don't want him to leave. I don't want him to leave. I think trying to replace the level of contribution that he brings to the team is very, very difficult in the current transfer market. The only way that I think that I would be okay with him leaving is if there's a better systematic fit next to Caicedo, because it looks like Reece James is going to play there, but you can't count on that all season, can you? So if they have someone in mind who can complement Caicedo, because in my mind that Enzo and Caicedo double pivot has never really worked. Enzo's been more effective when he's been further forward. Well, now you've got Rodgers, Palmer, and Esteval playing in that position, squeezing him out, probably. So I think Chelsea could see him as someone they want to keep around, but not at all costs. I don't think he's an untouchable. Look what happened with João Pedro when there were rumours about Barcelona being interested in. Chelsea shut it down and nothing. It was dead in the water. And Chelsea and Enzo and his agent could put a stop to this. Chelsea could come out and say he is not for sale at any price, just like they did with João Pedro. And Enzo and his agent could say, we're staying. If things work out, we're really happy to stay. None of those things have happened, which leads me to think that he's going to be sold. I just really hope it's a time or Chelsea are doing a lot of work behind the scenes to secure a replacement right now so it's ready, so it's like a transactional thing. But I think the writing's on the wall. I think he's gone. How do you feel about that? Like, because I know you're probably a bigger Enzo fan than me, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think I mean, you're losing somebody. And I know he's very polarizing figures, particularly with a lot of English Chelsea fans, and rightfully so, right? Based on his antics during the World Cup. And, off the field, we can talk about his transgressions, whether it was, with the racial comment, the racial singing he was doing after the Copa a couple years back, and then the way he was dealt with, doing the interview last year about Madrid. But I think on the pitches where we sort of have to value his experience, his leadership, and his sort of passion, and always playing, we can hate him or not, but to me he was one of the players that would always play for the badge, right? And you saw a lot of players sort of tapering off last year, but I think he was one of our few players that was consistent with João Pedro and scoring critical goals when we needed to last year and the year before. But can one player have a stranglehold over a club? I don't think so. And I think if his heart's not in this Chelsea project, especially with Xabi Alonso, I think you have to just let him leave.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's what I keep coming back to. He could make a big definite sign that he wants to stay. And maybe it might be like the Mason Mount thing, really, where both the club and the player know that he's going to go. So they're trying. There's a bit of politics involved, and there's a little bit of media savvy things going on here. One thing, though, I have to say, if I was Enzo right now, I'd be conflicted because I think there's only one way City is going to go from the heights of where Guardiola had, where they already gone 2 seasons without winning the league. And losing that spine of John Stones, Bernardo Silva, now Rodri, I don't think Enzo Fernandez, in terms of profile on the pitch, fixes any of Man City's issues. And you have to say where Chelsea are aiming for, and some of the self-reflection and some of the moves they've made in the transfer market, really the only direction is up. That's really the only feasible
I mean,
direction.
you hope so.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that might be very, very naive thinking on my part, considering Clear Lake Chelsea. But no, seriously, we've got one of the best young managers in the world. We've invested probably in some smart transfers this season. We've still got some top players. And Enzo Fernandez, I would think to yourself, I don't think Haaland is going to be at Man City longer than one more season. And Enzo Maresca has got a tough job to do, not just in terms of replacing Guardiola, but he's just not as good. You've got the great, well, arguably the greatest manager ever to manage the game at his greatest achievement at City, really, for 10 years. Like Alex Ferguson, anyone who comes in after that is not going to have the same buy-in from the players, and you're losing some really significant personalities in that City dressing room. And I don't think Enzo Fernandez fixes any of their issues. I don't think it's a case that if we sell him, it makes City stronger. Maybe in attitude and desire and big moments, but in terms of quality and like we watched that City Arsenal game yesterday, they were all over the place. And I don't think plugging Enzo Fernandez into there helps them. And I wonder if Enzo really should think about maybe reassessing some of his decisions about leaving Chelsea personally. That's enough of the transfer saga so far. So before we go into our predictions, we are, as I said, we're recording on Monday evening. We have got a special treat for a special gift for our email subscribers and our listeners, which is a free Chelsea season calendar, which we're sending out to our email subscribers. The last day to sign up is on Wednesday before we send this out. So the link is in the description of this episode. If you want a free schedule calendar as a free gift for our subscribers, just put your email in there. Follow us on social media at CATW Podcast. If you've got an email for us, we're info at CATW Podcast. But we'll be sending that round before the Premier League season starts on Friday. And as we segue nicely into that, we are going to do our pre-season predictions. So let's start off with Chelsea. Let's start off with our Chelsea predictions. Then we'll move on to more general Premier League positions. So, Manny, the ultimate first question. The ultimate first question. Which player is going to get sent off the most for us this season?
Man, that's always, I don't know. It's probably Caicedo, just the way he plays. I mean, honestly, I don't want to have this conversation about talking about players and red cards, but just the way he plays. He plays, listen, we are both huge fans, but sometimes he can put some irrational tackles, and you're just like, what were you thinking? But you love him when he makes those tackles, and and he intercepts the balls and things like that. But I think just the way his playing style and how aggressive he is, I think some of these, Premier League referees would probably give him a couple yellows that leading him to lead our red card count. What about you?
I'm going to go João Pedro. He plays
Yeah,
like he's got that edge about him.
he's
Like he
chippy,
plays
man.
on the
He's
line.
chippy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good shout. No, 100%. I don't know about these Brighton guys. Maybe Welbeck. Okay.
Calm him down a little bit. Someone has to take over, be the little shit after Cucurella leaves. How many
Yeah.
red cards do you think we're going to get this season in the Premier League?
I think five. Five.
I was going to go 4. I think there was going to be a
Yeah.
dramatic improvement either way. So,
Yeah,
on the
100%.
serious question, where are Chelsea going to finish in the Premier League this year?
I was going back and forth. I think we'll get top five for sure, just based on no focus on having to be, thinking about Europe. Now Manchester United is dealing with Champions League, and they really haven't done much straightening, to be honest, in this sort of transfer window in the summertime. I think Arsenal players are going to be sort of tired and a little bit lethargic. We'll still probably win the league, but I think Chelsea would probably be third in my opinion, third position.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
I
What
think
about
we're gonna
you?
win. I think we're gonna win the league. I think we're gonna win the league, and I've been like 85% serious. No,
Yeah.
I think something is telling me. I know people get excited about the Community Shield and Arsenal winning. I think unless they invest in a couple of more stronger positions, I think Chelsea have got the most favourable Premier League schedule this year. No Europe. You saw what happened with Manchester United. Manchester United had the best record in the Premier League once they got a competent coach in after Amorim left. And you think to yourself, if no Europe once a week, one game a week for the majority of the season, with the quality that Manchester United have, they probably would have won the league. Actually, if you're looking at the points per game, if they not if they got rid of Amorim before the season started, I think there is so many the teams that we're going to be competing against. I'm not convinced about any of them. Really, I think Arsenal you have to say are favourites. I've just got a sneaking feeling we've got such a good manager with a core group of players where I feel that there's going to be some additions that are going to complement how we want to play, and some of our best players are back fighting fit. And the only issue that I think would stop us is the goalkeeper. But I'm going to go bold. I'm going to go bold. I think we win the league this year. The last time this happened was 10 years ago. We didn't have Europe after finishing 10th, and we came back and won the league with a new manager, with some excellent new additions. And Golo Kante coming in. We got some great players that have come in this season, some electrifying players. I've got a sneaking feeling, really. It's been like bubbling for a few weeks, actually. And it's not just my delusional England disappointment from the World Cup that's trying to overcompensate, I guarantee you. But I think this is a good chance. You have to take advantage of not having that fixture congestion. And I think we've got a chance.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, listen, I'm all in with the way this team is playing and under the new stewardship of Xabi Alonso, but I just think it's hard to see us making up 33 points, right? We finished with 52 points last year. Arsenal had 85. That's a delta of 33 points. Can this team make up that ground to kind of get in that mid 80s where you have to finish to win the Premier League? I think also you have to also take in consideration there's a lot of noise around Chelsea, not just in the transfer market, but what's happening with our own ownership, right? You've heard today in the news, Mark Walter, Todd Bowley are actively trying to sell their minority stake to Clear Lake Capital, give Clear Lake Capital complete, power about what happens and the governing of all everything that happens in the transfer market. And so then you also have like all this external pressure that's kind of out the field of what's happening. I don't know if Xabi Alonso can overcome that, get this team to win the league, in my opinion.
So, yeah, I'm ruling with my heart a little bit on this, but I'm turning over a new leaf after last season. It ground me down so much, and it reminded me of that chaotic season that we had 10 years ago.
Oh, I love
And
that season, man. That was amazing. That was
yeah,
awesome. But we
yeah,
also had like proven Premier League players that just had a dip in form, I think, the year before, Eden Hazard specifically. But when you have Pedro, Hazard, Willian, and Diego Costa, and you have Angelo Conte also as a huge signing, he just controlled that whole midfield. Have we made that quality signing to see that jump to sort of got Antonio Conte to win the Premier League? Have we made that huge signing like N'Golo Conte was for Chelsea to sort of leapfrog the other teams?
not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
Maybe, but there's still a couple of weeks to go. But yeah, I think there's I logically you're right on all of it. But I'm choosing to believe. I'm living by the mantra of keep the faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think Chelsea will do in the cup competitions this year? So Carabao Cup and FA Cup.
Yeah, I honestly think they're going to go for it. I mean, obviously in the early rounds, we're playing teams that are, maybe in the championship or a couple leagues below. We're going to probably field a really younger squad and some reserve squads as well. But I think given the limited minutes that you have to spread around the season without Europe, I think a lot of the players that are, backups or in the reserve team were wanting to prove themselves, especially in this new coach. I think we're going to play well in these cup competitions. We're going to be more rest than the other teams. Obviously, I know we have to play an earlier round in the Carabao Cup, but I think we'll go all in. And this is one thing about Chelsea. This happened last year. It doesn't matter how bad we are. The taste of Wembley, we always get it. We always get it. We've been unsuccessful in the domestic cup finals of late, but we're always in and around, whether it's the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup in the semifinals. So I think it's going to happen again this year.
Yeah, I think we're going to win one of them. I'm not sure which one of them that is. But again, it's like you think about Chelsea luck really got lucky get to the FA Cup final last season, but your luck runs out when you play Pep Guardiola's Man City in the final. There's nothing like that, maybe besides Arsenal, where they have a proven coach who can win things. Everything else is wide open. And especially with Arsenal's squad being so tired from last season, there's no one who you play in a final where you think to yourself, oh, you're not going to win that. It's a lottery. So I think we break our hoodoo on that and win one. Which one, I'm not quite sure, but I'm not. Yeah, we'll come back to that. But I think we will win one this year. Who do you think is going to be our best signing?
I think it's going to be Palestra. Honestly, I think he's our most important signing. I think he fits the way Xabi wants the team to play. And I think he's very versatile. I didn't know he could play on the left side like he's been playing recently, you know. I thought he would just be on the right side. And just like the way the way he tracks back, his one-on-one defending and his crosses in and around the box, I think going to be so important, particularly for Morgan Rogers and João Pedro, when they sort of like crash into the box. I think he's going to be immense.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I was going to go for the other fullback that we brought in, which is Pep Chavaria. I think he's got flown slightly under the radar. This is a guy who's played at a very high level for a number of years. Just because he's not playing at one big sexy teams in Spain, it's an astute piece of business who Alonso really wanted. And I think if you look at his attributes, I think he's going to be that dog that we need, the fighter. And I think Chelsea fans are going to love him when he plays. Really, I do. And I think he might make a big difference. It's interesting that neither have said Morgan Rogers, but I think it's such a big price tag. It's going to take a little bit of time for him to adapt. And I think he's a known quantity, so it wouldn't be such a surprise. But which of our current squad who will be feasibly playing that we know at the moment do you think is the biggest question mark for Chelsea?
I think Wesley Fofana.
Yeah,
I think it's him. I think for me, there's sort of a ticking clock in terms of what he can bring to the squad because he was purchased for so much money. He's on high wages, and he has yet to deliver. An injury aside, even when he's been healthy, he's not been consistent. And he's somebody that we purchased to be that starting number one center back player. I mean, in terms of how much he's getting paid and how much he was purchased for as well. And injuries aside, I think even healthy, we were seeing some inconsistencies in his play. And mind you, yeah, he was paired up with some other center backs. It wasn't Levi Colwill like it was 2 years ago. And I can understand there's a big drop off between him and Toast and other players in the center back position. But I think there has to be a target on him in terms of performance because he brings a lot of controversy with some of his social media posts and things like that, going after other Chelsea fans and all these cryptic messages and things like that. And he doesn't do himself any justice by sort of toying with this media aspect of it because he's not really producing much that warrants his salary or warrants how much we paid for him on the pitch. So to me, that's the person that my spotlight's on in terms of I want to see him improve.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. Me would be Robert Sanchez, just because I'm concerned about what the effect of last year might have done on him. The player that we saw for the first half of the season, and after being dropped the season before in the second half in the Club World Cup, was a goalkeeper that I had a great bit of confidence in after a very shaky first 2 years. I just hope, because it looks like he is going to be our starting goalkeeper this year, that he's regained his confidence and is not a liability. That's always the question mark. What Robert Sanchez are you going to get? And again, that we've talked about it so many times. The natural attributes of that goalkeeper, he has the lot. He has the lot, but his head is not always right. And I just hope that Alonso has instilled some confidence into him, saying you are the number one. There's no question about it this season. If you have a bad game, we're not going to drop you. We're not going to dilly-dally around with like trying other goalkeeper combinations when it's not warranted. And I just hope he fixes it. Who do you think is going to be Chelsea's player of the season?
Yeah, I know. I made this bold prediction a couple episodes ago, and I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to have to say Marco Palestra. I know it's probably going to be João Pedro just based on his current form and what he's done in terms of scoring, and if he can continue that for the season. But for me, it's Palestra. Dude, I'm so excited about this player. I mean, just the way he just runs up and down and just his crossing, his link up, whether it's Estevar, whether it's Quenda, whether it's with whoever else. I'm just so excited about him in the system, and he's seems like he's adapted to, to Alonso's sort of play style, and it's whether or not can he adapt to the rigors of the Premier League, dealing with some of these fullbacks on the opposite end, or some of these wingers on the opposite end, or some of these other midfielders putting in really some harsh tackles, and I think he will. I think he will, and I think to me, he's gonna be my player of the season nominee.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I think it's going to be Levi Colwill. I think we're all going to see what we missed last season. I hesitate to say it too boldly because of such a serious injury that he had, and it will take the time to recover. But him having the summer off, him looking so strong when he did come back last season, he has all the attributes that we were missing last season. And I think he'll be the centerpiece of this team under Alonso, and I really rated him for so long, and I was so devastated for him last season, but I think he can be a real crucial player for Chelsea this season. And the interesting question, because we've barely talked about him in recent weeks. How many goals and assists do you think Cole Palmer is going to have this season?
I'm going to say, I would say probably 18. If you combination goals and assists, 18. I think you're limited in terms of having no European play, but I think I'd like to see him in like the 10-8 or 11-7 sort of goals to assist. And now, when I say goals, non-penalty goals, I don't like to add in the penalty goals as well, but I would like to see 18 to 20 just sort of improve.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was going to say a similar number as well. And the reason for that is actually because I don't think there's a sole dependency on him to get our goals anymore. I think João Pedro changed that. Enzo Fernandez changed that last season as well, really. But we've now got goals all over the pitch, really. You've got João Pedro, Palmer, Morgan Rogers, Esteval, even players like Palestra. They look dangerous in the box. The centre backs, it looks like we've figured out how to take set pieces again, which is excellent. I think there's goals all over the pitch, and I think Palmer was the sole goal machine for Chelsea for so long. And maybe actually that could depend on how if Nicholas Jackson features for Chelsea this season, because their connection and the way they build up play is so good. But how? Okay, and the final question. I've just thought of another one. Another one. Out of 10, what is your optimism rating for the season for Chelsea?
Man, 8.3. I'm excited. I really am. And it may not come across that based on my sort of apprehension with this podcast, this episode and previous ones, but I think it's more so because I've been sort of like, battered with all this, false optimism from seasons past, but I'm bought in this year only because I believe in this manager. I believe that they have changed their mind in terms of how they're doing transfer business, which I think is a good evolution of the ownership and the sporting directors. And I think with the players we have and having no Europe, I'm very, very optimistic.
Yeah, same. I'm actually going to go 10. I'm very, very optimistic. I talk to people about this, that the day of the FA Cup final when Chelsea lost, I was absolutely devastated, like in the real pits of despair. And when that news broke that Alonso had been hired half an hour after the game had finished, I snapped back into optimism immediately. The most optimistic I've been in a long time at Chelsea, because we haven't had a manager who's had this amount of kind of gravitas and just presence, influence, really, in a long time. I was excited when Tuchel got hired because I thought he was a good coach. Alonso is the first manager in a long time that we have hired who I feel can really influence players to join us. And I think that is something that is invaluable when you are not at the peak of your powers. With the fact that we convinced him, and I still have to pinch myself occasionally that he's our manager, because the trajectory of where we were going, I just thought to myself it was an unrealistic expectation. But we're here, and as I said, my predictions are very strong this year, and that is down to everything that has happened since that hire. So very optimistic. So let's talk about our Premier League predictions quickly. So I know we mentioned are potential winners, but how do you see the top five being?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, unfortunately, I think Arsenal is going to win the league. I think that's, I hate it, but I think it's what's going to happen only because the continuity and the way the team plays. I'm hoping that there's going to be a little bit more struggle for them to score goals and set piece opportunities with the Premier League sort of, clamping down on that. But I just don't see another team that can give them a run in this title defense. I mean, we would hope it would be Man City, but we just saw how foolish they looked in the Community Shield. I don't think the other teams like Manchester United, Liverpool have sort of reloaded enough to even, compete with Arsenal. I honestly do think you may be right. Maybe Chelsea is one of the only few teams that can without having any sort of European aspirations this year. But unfortunately think Arsenal's going to win the league. It sucks and it pains me to say that, but I think they're going to be back-to-back champions.
How does the rest of the top five look for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Man City. I think what's gonna happen is you may ask this question later on, but I think Enzo Fernandez will be the first manager fired, and
Oh,
I think they're gonna
wow.
bring in somebody else that can, bring them back into the second position at some point this season. I think third is gonna be Chelsea. I think Man U fourth, Liverpool fifth.
That's, you know what? See, that might sound like a crazy prediction about Maresca, but I'm like fully with you on that. I think, I think they're going to struggle this year. I think they're really going to struggle. I think I'm going to stick with my bold prediction: Chelsea to win the league, Arsenal second. I think both Manchester clubs are going to find it very difficult this year. I think they're going to find it very difficult. I think you're probably going to see City third. I think, and then Manchester United fourth, and then Spurs fifth. You have to put it into the same category. No European football. They have brought some good players in this year, and obviously that it hurts me to say that as a Chelsea supporter. But De Zerbi's a good manager. He's a good manager who's had a summer of recruitment. They've got some of the nonsense makers out for them. They are lots and loaded and ready to go. And honestly, I think they'll finish above Liverpool. Unless Liverpool makes some big changes in the transfer market, I think Liverpool will finish out the top five this year.
No, I mean, I think, I mean, with Tottenham, maybe they right the ship. I don't know, 2 years in a row, 17th position. I don't know how many signings they can do to sort of because that squad needed a whole revamp. I mean, a whole revamp, not just whatever they purchased this year. I mean, it was a culture of just mediocrity 2 years in a row. And I don't know if De Zerbi can do enough with some of the signings to get them in that fifth position. But you may be right. There may be a lot of parity in terms of in the top six and teams not doing as well as they did last year.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's listen, Liverpool. I think they're like you look at some of the moves they've made in the transfer market, hardly convincing. They've lost one of their greatest ever players in Mo Salah, and they've done nothing to replace him, and that's a big miss. And still like they lost Trent last year. They've got Van Dijk this year, but Arujo from Barcelona on loan to cover that defense. I don't see it. I don't see them cracking the top five this year unless some big changes happen for them. So you say that Enzo Maresca is the first manager to be sacked. Do you want to go into some more detail about that?
No, I just think the way the team, and this is wishful thinking mainly. Honestly, I want to see him. I want to see him fail. I want to see him suffer. The way he left things with Chelsea and just quit like a little bitch. I want to see him fail, and I want to see him get fired. But I think there's also something pragmatic about it, just because I think no Pep, no Premier League title for 2 years. Losing, like you mentioned earlier in this podcast, so many quality leader players, and you can't replace Rodri. It doesn't matter, no matter how many, even if it's Anderson, even if it's Fernandez, you're not going to replace what Rodri did for this club. And then you're going to get your, goal machine. Erling Haaland is still a scorer, but there's other tangibles that I just don't think that he's going to fail. I think he's going to have difficulty. And I think it's sort of, Man City was able to sort of get through those little lulls that you saw before with just because it was Pep Guardiola, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that with Enzo Maresca. They
I
usually
agree.
start slow. This Man City starts slow. They do. In the last couple seasons they have in the Premier League, and I think that's going to be to detriment of Enzo.
Yeah, I agree. I think people talk about Enzo Fernandez. Whatever you think of him, and I think he's a top player. I think he's replaceable. Rodri is not. Rodri is not replaceable. The Rodri that we saw in the World Cup and at the back end of last season is the best player in the world in that position. He just allows you to do everything. He allows Spain to play whatever way they want to play. And he does that for City as well. And I just think he's in deep trouble. I don't think, though, he's the first to go because I think City will have some patience with him. I'm going to go bold on this one. I think David Moyes is the first manager sacked this year at Everton.
Yeah.
I think the same thing was happening to Everton at the back end of last season that happens with Moyes, where I feel that he built, and I don't necessarily think it's a good decision, but I just think he solidified Everton again away from the relegation zone. And the way he plays football, I think the fans are just going to get annoyed with it. And if they get off to a slow start, I think he could be in trouble. Who do you think is going to get relegated?
Yeah, I think two out of the three will be relegated. I'm thinking Hull City. I mean, they got promoted in the playoffs for sure. I think they're going to have a difficulty because they had a really short summer prep window, and I think they're going to have difficulty getting, into that Premier League sort of competition. Um, I think Ipswich Town. I think with Kieran McKenna gone, I mean, he left before the start of the season. How are you going to, replace somebody who was stalwart for Ipswich Town and how they got promoted, a couple seasons back and how they played last year. And I think they conceded a lot of goals in the championship, and they haven't really bolstered themselves in the back line. And so I think they're probably going to be the second team that's the newly promoted that to go down. And I think third is going to be Crystal Palace. Honestly, I think
Oh,
Crystal Palace. I know that they've been flirting, here and there, but I think losing Glasner is huge. And then when you lose Mark Gahey and Lacroix, who are solid in their back line, from last season to this, and then having to balance with the European fixtures on Thursdays with the domestic, competition on the weekends, I think they're going to have that's going to cause a big strain on their squad. And I think they're going to be the team that's going to be relegated next year. I think
that's
Coventry will stay up.
Yeah, I think they will as well. That we agree on the two. I think Hull and Ipswich. I think Ipswich have invested a lot, but losing McKenna. I know Gary O'Neill is not a bad manager, but he's not the same. It's just such a different. If you get a team promoted, you have to have the same manager running through. I think either Sunderland or Newcastle get relegated this year. I think for two reasons. Firstly, Newcastle. I mean, it's been like rats from a sinking ship, hasn't it? Really. And like, I actually think their new manager, from what I've read of him, is actually pretty good. But you're not just losing some of the big name players, you're losing again the leadership group. And Newcastle's reserves are not good enough. They're not just trying to replace players, they're trying to invest the kind of the backbone of that team that has made them successful under Eddie Howe, arguably. And the reason why I put on Sunderland as well, maybe, is because Europe. They've hardly reinvested in the squad at all. I think that momentum carries you a certain distance, but if they break into the next rounds of the Europa League, I think that could be a bit of a poison chalice for them. So I think one of those two teams. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Newcastle get relegated, and that's just maybe just wishful thinking.
Yeah, out of the two, I would probably say Newcastle more so, just because I mean, losing Tonali, that's a huge loss. Gordon also leaving, going to Barcelona, and then having a new manager, I think it's going to be much more difficult. And they can't really make some of the purchases that other teams could be. And I think Sunderland, I know that they're going to be in Europe this year. I still think they're a good team, and I think they have a great manager. And I think, man, playing in the Stadium of Light to me, gives them such a distinct advantage versus other teams. I think they'll still stay up.
Who do you think is going to win the Golden Boot?
Holland, without a doubt. It doesn't matter who's the manager. This guy always has an eye for goal, and he's going to be repeat Golden Boot for sure.
I can't say the same. I'm going to go João Pedro. João
Oh,
Pedro
he's
for
the
Golden
homer.
Boot. Yeah.
Hey, listen, I want to know what you had for dinner, and please send me
Yeah.
some of that stuff.
It's like I've had a fucking personality bypass or something since last season. I've had a relaxing summer, Manny. I can tell you now, I enjoyed the World Cup. It was lovely. for having a good time. Like, got some positivity back in the lungs. I feel good.
You got, and we're recording on Zoom. You got a good glow to you. You just look very glow. You got a
Thank you,
blow
mate. It's
up.
nothing to do with the lighting. It's my pure angelic nature. So who do you think is going to be the signing of the season?
I mean, I don't want to just speak like a broken, I don't know, whatever, a broken record, just repeating the same thing with Palestra, but I think it's going to be Palestra. I think he's the signing of the season. I know my mind wants to say Morgan Rogers, but I'm following my heart. I really like this kid. I really like what I'm seeing in the preseason. And for me, I think he's the signing of the season so far for Chelsea. Just because, I mean, he was what defensive player of the year in Serie A and the fee that we got him for and how amazing he is and his talent. I mean, he's so young, right? And he can only grow in terms of his experience and the way he plays and just being 21 years of age. I'm super excited about him. And I think he's our signing of the season so far.
Nice. I am going to go with a little bit of a hipster choice here because I've been following this player for a little bit. A guy called Mamadou Sangare, who just signed for Brentford from RB Salzburg. Actually, one of the top scouted talents in Europe for the last couple of years. I think I couldn't believe they signed him. The fee was pretty high. I think it was like 40 million for him. Very good player. And I think Brentford, they've got a lot of goals in this team, and I think they've got a lot of dynamism. And again, I think that team just constantly proves people wrong. And the fact that they're, I think, kind of hitting another level, that or Harry Wilson going to Leeds, actually. I thought Harry Wilson went to Leeds on a free. Harry Wilson was spectacular for Fulham last season. I think Leeds could be a bit of an underdog, actually. Who, on that topic, who
I
do you
mean,
think?
what about like I mean, there's other players like Bruno Guimaraes and Arsenal. I think that was a great signing for them. Even like Elliot Anderson and Man City is really huge. But don't even. What about Andre Santos for Man U? I think that's a huge signing for them as well. Seriously, honestly, think
Yeah,
I'm very bullish on him as well. Those are some honorable mentions, but I'm still going to go with my boy Palestra.
yeah, that's a good shout. Last couple of ones here. So, who do you think is going to be the underdog story of the season? Which team is going to surprise us?
Coventry. Honestly, I think it's Coventry. I think it's a team that we can talk at length about what Frank Lampard means for Chelsea as a player. It's completely different than what he was in terms of our both of our experiences as a manager, but seeing what he did with Coventry the last two seasons, really, and how the style of play, it would be probably more difficult for it to transition into the Premier League. But I'm really excited about him, and I'm really excited about their team as well.
Yeah, it's a good shout. I really hope Frank does well there. I really hope he keeps them up his first season back in the Premier League. He's kind of shown such a good example, really kind of what he did as a player, where he got written off as a player early in his playing career, fought back to do good things, and he's arguably our greatest ever player, and I will be cheering them on when they're not playing us. So for me, it's going to be Nottingham Forest. I think Glasner going to them. Listen, their owner is completely mental, but they keep their good players on the whole, besides Elliot Anderson, really, and got such a massive fee. And they do have some talented players, and I think Glasner's a fantastic manager, really. And I think the fact that they finished so low in the league last year, I think them or Spurs are going to surprise people this year. I think they've got those two coaches are way too good for those clubs, and I think they could be the surprise story of the season. And the last prediction of all these Premier League predictions actually goes to next week. Chelsea's first game against Fulham away from home on Monday night, UK time. What do you think is going to happen, and what do you think the score is going to be?
I'm actually, last couple seasons we've been pretty optimistic about Chelsea, particularly how we ended up last year in the Club World Cup, and the optimism ranker was really high for both of us. I think it's sort of a different Chelsea team now with a new manager, a better manager, and proven players. I'm super excited about this weekend. I think it's a good team to match up with. It's a good London derby. Away at Craven Cottage won't be underneath the lights of the Stamford Bridge as of yet, but I think with the way our team is playing and with the way some of the players are performing, particularly João Pedro, I think we're going to probably control the midfield. I'm looking at like a 2-0 victory or 3-1 victory.
Nice. Also, they've got a new
2-0 for
manager as
Chelsea.
well. Yeah, they've got a new manager as well. Marco Silva left after a long, stable reign. Arbeloa comes in from Real Madrid, actually, and they're a bit of an unknown quantity, but I think, yeah, as I said, I'm rolling the optimism. I think it's going to be a bit closer. I think it's going to be a 2-1 Chelsea win. I just think starting the season, you just have to try and get a win and scrape it through. And I don't think it's going to be particularly glamorous, but yeah, I think we'll start off with 3 points on the table for Xabi Alonso's Blues.
Well, we want to thank everyone for listening to this week's episode of Chelsea Against the World. Thank you so much for tuning in each and every single week.
Yep, and as we mentioned, our free gift for our subscribers is coming on Wednesday. So please make sure you sign up to our email newsletter, which you can find in the link in the description, and we'll send that gift out to you. But make sure you subscribe by Wednesday for that one. Follow us on our social media accounts. We're at CATW Podcast, Chelsea Against the World TV. We've just hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, Manny, as well. You can also listen to all our episodes on YouTube now if you prefer listening to our podcast there. And if you've got an email for us, we're info@catwpodcast.com. And if you enjoy the show, please hit the follow or subscribe button, whatever platform you're listening to us on. Keep the faith. New season starts next Monday. We have got the optimism going on this podcast. Let's hope that Alonso and Chelsea can start the season as we mean to go on with 3 points. But thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in our next episode.